Hi, welcome back to You Can Homeschool. I'm Tracy Hagerman, also known as the Happy Homeschooler, and I'm here once again with Pat Fenner from Breakthrough Homeschooling. So, ladies and gents, what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about something that is one of my favorite things, books. I love books. As a kid, I would go to the library about once every 3 weeks, haul 20 books out, read them all, and then haul them all back and get more. I just love books. So if you're a book fan or not, we're going to try and pique your curiosity today with some of our favorite books. So we want to talk, I think we're going to each cover maybe 5 of our favorite books. And hopefully you might want to add this to your winter reading list.
Oh, I know, because Tracy, what better way to spend a cold, gray winter afternoon than cuddled under a blanket with maybe hot chocolate? Even though I'm a coffee drinker, we can do hot chocolate, when we're reading and with a good book. Oh, I can't wait to hear about yours. This is because I love mine, but we'll hear yours too.
Okay, well, I'm going to start. And the first one I'm going to start with, I'm going to give you the author's name, and she's written over 50 books. And I know that because I've actually read 49 of her books. And the reason for this is because, as some of you know, I'm also a fiction writer, Christian fiction writer. And this is the lady that inspired me. It was her books who inspired me to actually finally sit down and write books. So drum roll.
Yes.
One of my favorite authors is Karen Kingsbury. So one of the things I love about her books is most of her books are based on life experiences. So even though her books are fictions, she takes a lot of her own personal life and family experiences and writes them into the books. And so what struck me with her books is that I always felt things seemed so believable. Her books were believable. And I love, like, if you think about movies, I love movies based on a true story. So I love books based on a true story because I find the characters have greater depth because, they're modeled after an actual person. So if you go to Karen Kingsbury and you Google that, you're going to find, like, I don't know. I don't know how many books she has now, maybe 60, maybe more. I don't know. But one of the series that she has that I would suggest starting with is the Bailey Flanagan series. And that character is actually based on her one and only daughter. But that's a series of 4 books. And it'll kind of give you a flavor of her writing and her characters. And I love her books. I have trouble putting her books down. And they spoke a lot to me as a mother, also trying to train up my children in life. So I would highly recommend her books. And like I said, you get under that blanket with your cocoa or I like cinnamon tea. You're not coming out for a few hours.
So you have to put the kids in front of something fun to do because good. Okay. Well, that's that she's on my radar now. That'll be good for this winter. My first book is somebody, considering the COVID-19 trauma that we probably are still recovering from, if not, once again, find ourselves in the middle of. And then it kind of was the perfect storm for me last year, with some personal things that happened too as well, which some of them you've heard about in our August series of kind of being real. But anyway, so I kind of dealt with a lot that year. And the first book that I want to recommend is Allie Worthington's Standing Strong. If you're watching this on video, this is what the book looks like. I also was fortunate enough to have a couple of friends who were leading an online Bible study working through that book. And it was an excellent resource. But the subtitle of it is A Woman's Guide to Overcoming Adversity and Living with Confidence. And it's really funny because, when you have kids or when you are a kid, you think, well, once I get to grow up, once I grow up, once I'm an adult, I'll have my act together. Or, you have this image that adults are confident, adults know what to do. Like, I don't want to make a phone call as a teenager. I don't know what to say. Well, guess what? Some adults don't either. Sometimes when you're talking to somebody. And so living with confidence is really something that we always deal with. I think, I mean, certainly I'm pushing a lovely age this year, and I'm still dealing with it. So it was really helpful. And she does, she's a Christian writer. So her suggestions and her references and everything are really, they're sound, based on sound word. And it's very helpful. And if you could find a book club or lead a book study of your own, start a book study with a couple of friends this winter while you're, kind of hunkered down. And it was an excellent book. So it's Standing Strong by Allie Worthington. That's my first.
Ooh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one I want to talk about is devotionals. And I know, Pat, you've written a devotional.
For homeschoolers, specifically.
Yeah, for homeschoolers. So I'm going to suggest devotionals. And one of them that I've just read, which was given to me as a gift by one of my daughters, is by Lisa Turkhurst. And I won't get into the details, but I've had a difficult year. And I know a lot of people talked about, 2020 being a really difficult year because of COVID, but myself personally, 2021 has been a very difficult year. And this book spoke to me so much. I've actually got it here. It's a beautiful book, and it's called Seeing Beautiful Again. And it's 50 devotions. And it's to find redemption in every part of your story. So as we go through life, we all have things, trials that come away. It might be an illness. It might be a death from COVID. It might be, a suicide. It might be an ill parent, a child that's ill, or a child that, has gone wayward. There's so many things that we go through in life. And sometimes when you're in the midst of those struggles, you just want to put your head in the sand and never look up. And this book just helped me so much because each day it was reminding myself that God loves us. He's there. We're not alone. And life is still beautiful, even in the chaos. And when I think of homeschooling, there were some difficult times through our homeschooling when my son was very sick. Their life and beauty was there. So the thing that I really love about devotionals is it gives you an opportunity to get yourself into a book for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but every day. So it rejuvenates you every day when you just say, oh, I'm just going to go into my devotional for a few minutes and start my day. And I find it sets the tone for the day. So sometimes we don't have the time to snuggle under a blanket for 2 to 3 hours with our favorite book. But I find if I take the time every day to be in a devotional and thinking about God's word and all the gifts he has for us, that just helps set the peace and the joy despite the chaos or whatever is going on in our life. So this is a devotional I highly, highly, highly recommend.
And we'll be actually doing an episode on devotionals around the beginning of the year. So if you're either curious or interested in our faves, we're going to be sharing our favorite devotionals. I'm sure Tracy will be sharing that book again too for that reason, but keep your ears open and your eyes open for that episode, because that'll be a really good one. That's really funny that's your number 2 choice, because my number 2 choice is also a Lisa Turkhurst book, but it was, I bought it on Audible. I've listened to it on my phone, so I don't have the actual book to show, but it's Not Supposed to Be This Way. And again, just keeping it real here. This past year, there were a number of disappointments in my life. And you, as Tracy points out, you may be feeling them as well too. And, sometimes we have disappointments in our marriage, and those are really hard to deal with. Not only our children, but homeschooling can be hard on a marriage. And we need to talk about that. And we need to address that, because it's often, in my experience, the elephant in the room. And what we see from other people are these wonderful, beautiful families and marriages, and we don't always know the pain behind them. And what I liked about It's Not Supposed to Be This Way is that she takes, this was the story of Lisa Turker's own marriage disappointment challenges. Her husband had had an affair, but they were able to bounce back from it and heal from it. And they both shared their story. And that was really encouraging to me. We celebrated 35 years of marriage this year. And I'm just going to be honest, they haven't been all happy years. You know, we've had rocky years as well as any of us will have, you know. And that book was just very encouraging for me during a time that I was kind of struggling. So that's definitely a book. And the reason I bought it as an audiobook is because I am very guilty or susceptible to kind of repeating messages in my head that I shouldn't be. My self-talk can be very negative sometimes. And so I found that listening to this really helped replace those messages for me. So it was super helpful in kind of tweaking, you know, and redirecting my my self-talk. So that's It's Not Supposed to Be This Way. Lisa Turkhurst is my number 2.
I think that's so funny because our listeners here, you may not know this, but we don't usually talk before we do our podcast. We come up with our topics, we come up with our own, we prep on our own, and then we get together and have this nice discussion. And so it always amazes me how in line we can be. So picking the same author as our second choice. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, I have another book that I've loaned out many times, so I don't have that with me here, but another one that I have absolutely loved is called 1,000 Gifts by Anne Voskamp. And this book was recommended to me. And basically, the premise of the book is that no matter what you're going through, there's always beauty in every day, in every single day. And one of the beautiful things about this book is Anne, as she almost writes poetically. And that sounds funny, but the way she puts her words together is absolutely beautiful. And it's the type of book that usually I just skim really fast through books. I'm a really quick reader, but this was one book I wanted to read a paragraph or two and then reread and sort of let it marinate in my mind. She has such a different style of writing that I loved. But as a result of this book, the reason it's called 1,000 Gifts is it encourages us to take a notebook and to start recording from 1 to 1,000 things in our life that we're grateful for. And it could be something as simple as you're, standing at your sink, preparing the evening meal, and you look outside and a butterfly flits by the window. It could be that simple, but it's helping us live in the moment and recognize there's a beautiful thing in my day, despite the chaos, despite the busyness. And I just love that book. And I know that when I've struggled in my life, I've gone back to my 1,000 things, and I'm not at 1,000 yet. I'm at 452, I think. And I've been working on this for a couple years now. But I go back and I open that book when I'm feeling down or discouraged, and I start just reading all the blessings that I've had in those days. So I can't say enough about that book. It's a beautiful book, 1,000 Gifts by Anne Voskamp.
Oh, I love that. That's listen, y'all, anything by Anne Voskamp. You're right though, Tracy. It's almost like a devotional because everything she writes is just so packed and so well written. Like you can read a paragraph and then put the book down and think about that paragraph for the day. I have an Anne Voskamp book, which I'm blanking out on the title, by my bed because I really find like I like reading her the last thing before I go to sleep because it gives me good things to think about and to think on. So good choice. I like that. Okay, now y'all, you're going to laugh and please hear my sincerity in this next one. Okay, because this is not a paid endorsement, but my choice number 3, Pinnacle of Truth, book one, the Wilson series, written by none other than Tracy Hagerman. Let's see her name right there. And y'all, this was the first book on the series, and I had never read her. I mean, honestly, when she and I started doing this podcast together and talking, like, I knew she was an author because we met on a self-publishing website, but I never read her books. I had read The Happy Homeschooler, but I hadn't read her fiction because I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fiction reader. I'm not. And I used to be when I was younger and didn't have kids. I started homeschooling, and it became all homeschooling and self-improvement and parenting and all the real things. Not that fiction's not real, but you know what I'm saying. So nonfiction stuff. So anyway, I loved Pinnacle of Truth, and I was really drawn into it. And then when Tracy and I started talking, over the months, and I realized that this was based on her family too. Oh my gosh, it was like, yeah, I need to read the rest of these. And you're on book 4 or 5, right?
4 is published, and I'm slowly working on book 5.
Right. Well, let me tell you, they're uplifting. They're, there's drama and humor. There's all the things in it. And I like Tracy's writing. And so that's my third choice. It's Pinnacle of Truth. It's very, very well done fiction, and it's encouraging and uplifting and real. Like, you can relate to a lot of the things, that conversations they have, or I don't want to give away the storyline, but you won't be disappointed.
Pat, you said written by Tracy Hagerman, and even though it is fiction, as you know, it is inspired by true events.
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel that the Lord wrote that book, because when I would sit down to write it, I would just go through what the actual story of what happened to my son, and his illness. And anyways, I won't get into it, but I would just sit down, and it was like my fingers would dance across the keyboard, and it was like the Lord was writing the story through me.
And I could see how it would have, the process of writing that book could help you process what happened, because it was like you said, and at that point I knew then, it was based on really what had happened in your family, and had heard your son's story, but I could see how that would be mentally recharging too for you, just going through that process.
What's also incredible is I never thought I would be a writer. I'm actually very math and science focused, those who know me. And in grade 3, I still couldn't read, if you can believe that. I had a lot of trouble learning to read. And so the fact that, I've published these books, that is really the Lord's doing, because it's not my, what I thought wasn't my gift, but the Lord nudged me to tell the story. Yeah. So anyways.
Well, I'm glad you listened to his nudge, because
all right. Now I'm going to go on a different vein. And one of the big things as a homeschooler that I'm always talking about is to read with your children. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes you get those little readers, and it's like the grade 2 reader or the grade 3 reader. And I always think, oh, they're so boring. It's like little Tommy rode his bicycle to the park, and because they're trying to get the kids to, read simple words and that. And I always believed in reading to your children as much as possible. Always read above their grade level.
Yes.
So they're always learning. So I'm going to recommend that if you're thinking, well, I don't have time to read, I have 8 kids. Well, I'm going to recommend a little 3-book chapter series to read with your kids that you'll enjoy too. And I think I have 2 of the books here. One of them is quite well used, but it's the little series, the Mouse and the Motorcycle.
Oh, yes, Beverly.
Runaway Ralph and Ralph S. Mouse. So there's Runaway Ralph. And I think those are book 2 and 3. As you can see, very well used. Mm-hmm. But this is the story of a little mouse and his adventures. And they're by Beverly Cleary, who's written a number of children's books. But I just love these because it was one I could cuddle up on the couch with my kids. They were always like, oh, read another chapter. And I'd be like, tomorrow we'll read another chapter at night. So it would just be something that we could do together as a family, snuggled in the bed, that we all enjoyed. So they're entertaining. And, we sometimes are always reading homeschooling books, or, mom's reading her own book. But if you want a little family snuggle, highly recommend. There's some of my favorite kids chapter books. So,
oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, here's, okay. My next one is, Tracy mentioned earlier how she likes books that are based on real life. And my next one is Just Mercy, Brian Stevenson. This was based on the subtitle, The Story of Justice and Redemption. And I actually watched the movie on Netflix first, and that was what led me to the book, because I was like, oh, I want to hear the whole story about this. It's a tough book. It deals with racism, and it's kind of, and then the movie was difficult and everything, but it is fascinating. It's just really eye-opening to just kind of read about a topic that I don't usually read a lot about. Racism is, of course, right now, Black Lives Matter and everything, and we're being really kind of made aware of how a significant portion of people in the United States have been living for years and been treated. And so Just Mercy is definitely something that you might want to read to kind of open your eyes to how other people live, and how we can be a part of the solution. And that's what I like about it, that he wasn't really throwing anybody under the bus, so to speak, but we were given an opportunity to see a story of how people became part of the solution, and how we can become part of the solution too. So Just Mercy, excellent. This was one of those books, though, that I really sunk into. Like, I'm privileged now because I don't have a lot of little ones hanging around. So, pulling on me to make dinner and all that stuff. And I have to admit, I missed dinner 2 days in a row because I couldn't put the book down. It's like I needed to read more than I needed to eat. So Just Mercy, Brian Stevenson, excellent. I would totally recommend that.
I have a question. The author, Brian Stevenson, is this something he witnessed, experienced?
He was actually part of the story. He was the lawyer that was kind of pivotal with the whole situation that came up. And I'm not, it's a complicated story. So I am avoiding giving synopsis of it, because I don't know how I could actually give you the Reader's Digest version. It was excellent. It was really good.
Sounds like a very, very important book for our times.
Mm-hmm. It's a good book, actually, too, to read with if you have teenagers. They can handle it. They should be able to handle it. If they can't, I think that's another conversation we should have about, as parents, how we need to help our children walk through issues that are, popular or current in the times, and, help introduce them and give them perspective from age and as a parent, and definitely from scripture. So it's definitely a book you could read with your teens and discuss. Make sure you talk about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Now I'm going to go down a totally different vein.
You go, girl.
One of the things that I find that we do as we become adults is we lose some of the joys and interests of childhood, some of the games and the fun things we used to do. We become more serious and intentional, which is, part of being an adult. But I always think it's important to leave some things in your life that gives you joy. And one of the things, like I said, I love math and equations and logic. Crazy.
And we're still friends.
And so one of the books that I really enjoy are puzzle books. And one is called Ken by Will Short. So these are little, if you know Sudoku at all, or this is a little more, I'd say, advanced than that. So you're trying to fit in numbers into these grids. And again, it's hard to describe on a podcast what it is, but why I'm bringing this up is this is something that I'll take 10 minutes and do, or 15 minutes I'll work on. And another one that I like is called Jumble Gymnastics. So, and those are like words, figuring out words, and then figuring out, oh, if you figure out the letters are scrambled in 4 different words, and then when you unscramble them, their letters are circled, and then you help figure out the answer to a little cartoon. Anyways, the reason I'm bringing these up is sometimes we think of like, I don't have time to read. And I know that I read so
Yes.
much less than when I was homeschooled than I get to do now or prior to homeschooling. But sometimes just having those little puzzle books, or maybe you enjoy crosswords. I'm terrible at crosswords. I would have to look up every definition. It's just not my thing, but some people really enjoy the trivia and that. So if that's something that appeals to you, or if you liked puzzles when you were a kid, then get yourself a couple of little books and keep your mind sharp. And it's a little, break from your day, or something that you can just put in your purse when you're waiting at the dentist or whatever. So I enjoy those Ken and Jumble books, and they're on my winter reading list.
Really? So, okay. And I want to throw in, because first of all, I was so excited to see that that Ken is by Will Shortz, because he is, for those of you in the States that are aware of NPR, on Saturdays, I believe it's Saturday mornings, Will Shortz has a puzzler segment on NPR, and he does word puzzles that the family can listen to and try to figure out. They are the most amazing, complicated. I don't know how this man comes up with them, but Will Shortz is somebody to check out as a family. And the other one, if you like puzzles, and if you're studying music with your students, with your kids, Piano Puzzler is another one. Again, that's on the radio, or you can get the app, download the app or whatever too, and listen to it. But Piano Puzzler is this amazing musician, and I'm blanking out on his name, plays the piano, and he plays a known song. So he'll play something like Three Blind Mice, and he'll play it in a classical format, or in contemporary style or whatever. And but it sounds easy the way I'm describing it, but it's not, because he doesn't play it verbatim. He'll extend the theme or the melody out and everything. And you have to try to guess what style it's in and what the song is. And the kids and I used to sit around, because we used to listen to it on the radio before there were apps and everything for this. And it was so much fun. We would have some, and then at the end of the episode, he'll give, he'll explain, he'll call a listener up who will try to guess it, and then he'll give the answer. And half the time we'd be like, what? I didn't hear that. Or it's just a lot of fun. So if you like puzzles, those are 2 other ones. And that Will Shortz guy was what kind of prompted me to remember those. But those were really fun memories that we have, sitting around listening to these puzzles and trying to figure them out.
And that's so funny, Pat, because I didn't know anything about that author. I just love that type of puzzle, the Ken books by Will Shortz. Like, I never even heard his name before. So you're telling me this, and I'm like, wow, what a small world.
I know.
So interesting.
Oh, okay. So this is my last thing. Actually, my initial choice was What Color is Your Parachute for Teens? And when we were getting ready to record this episode, I pulled the wrong book off, and I remembered, oh yeah, this is not a new book. This is No Parachute Required: Translating Your Passion into a Paycheck and a Career. This is also something, though, that you can work together with a teen, preparing them for their future. Or if you're getting ready to transition to like post homeschooling life or whatever, you can use it too. I do want to read something that I found earmarked in it when I just pulled the book off the shelf. Really Bad Ways to Choose Your Future. And this spoke to me because I currently have a senior in high school. So we're trying to work on this. What do you want to do for your future? So the biggest influences, the worst reasons to choose for a future, things where you liked your high school teacher in that subject. Of course, as homeschooling parents, that's not a bad thing, but you had a friend who was in that major. You heard it was easy. This one might hurt a little bit for y'all to hear, Mom and Dad, but your parents suggested it. That's not a good reason necessarily. And you just picked one with the intention of changing it once you had more time to analyze your options. So these are things that you would study to go to college to become something. Those are not good reasons to pick a career or a major. So I thought that was really interesting. And that opens up a whole chapter on good versus not so good reasons to choose a career. And then, of course, figuring out how to prepare for that career. So that No Parachute Required by Jeff Gunhouse, Gunhus. We'll have all the names in the show notes of these guys. And that's good for moms or teens.
Does that book give you ideas of how to pick your college major?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Just how not to.
Everything not to do, and then you're on your own. No, that's what. No.
It's a book of comedy.
This is like 400 pages of how to work through that. So it's you could actually use this as a career exploration elective for your senior or your high schooler.
Okay, just 400 pages. You might be scaring us off there, Pat.
Well, it's not the kind of book. What I liked about it wasn't yes, you could work through it, and you would want to if you're going to use it as a basis for like a student, if you want to do an elective for your kid, but you don't have to, you can pick it up. You don't have to, and you don't have to work through the whole thing. You don't have to go through it. Well, it's probably more effective as a course or for your teenager to go through it. But there's a lot of food for thought for adults as you might find yourself transitioning.
So I'm assuming you can look at the table of contents and pick the subjects areas that appeal to you at that time. Oh, yep. Sounds good. Absolutely. Sounds very good. Very intriguing. Yeah.
Yes. So what's your closing one? Do you have one more for us? Or
that was 5.
Oh, that was 5.
Yeah,
that was that. The time went so fast.
I have lots more, but
yes,
we're going to save those for our next reading list.
Yes, keep your eyes open and your ears open around the change of seasons. We have decided, since Tracy and I are both avid readers and have bookshelves like I won't even show you the books we've read, we're going to be sharing our favorites, and we're going to be doing seasonal book lists. So this one was winter, kind of get you working on projects and, stuff to read, cuddle under your books with your family. Of course, our next one will be our spring reading list. So keep your ears open for that one.
Right. Well, I think that's it. That's all we have this week.
That's right.
So remember, you can homeschool. You can have time to read, and it can all be so awesome.
That's right. Have a great week. And I just want to point out that we will be having the links and everything in the show notes. So if you're interested in pursuing any of these books, you can follow up with them there. All righty. You all take care. Bye-bye.